the one thing with driving 95,000 kilometers a year, Medicine Hat, in my opinion, is in the central hub of Western Canada. I've often wondered why there's not a lot more industry or shipping and stuff like that. Considering, when I drove it, I drive 12 hours to Vancouver, 10 hours to to Winnipeg and stuff like that. And, you're driving to Edmonton and that. And I think that Medicine Hat's missing its potential to grow.
This episode of Bring Back the Porch, brought to you by Bernie Leahy, River Street Realty. Let's get you home. And joining me on this episode of Bring Back the Porch is the City Council candidate, Dana Christensen. Welcome.
Good morning or afternoon.
Yeah. Depending on when you are, where you are, when you're listening or watching this. Yeah.
Absolutely.
The beauty of a podcast. When your eyes are busy, your ears are free. So you can watch us or you can listen to us anytime, anywhere. We're just about everywhere. It's been a busy campaign for us. How's it been for you?
It's been busy talking to people. As you probably noticed, you don't see any of my signs around town because I'm trying to respect my finances. Because if I respect my finances, I'll treat the city's money exactly the same way. So just out and about, doing a lot of talking to people, going out and doing what I can do and just hitting the road.
Mm-hmm. What drew you into politics, particularly into this fight?
My 7-year-old son. I look at him and wonder what he's going to do in 11 years when he graduates. I drive past Crescent Heights High School every day. Same question. I was just at the college graduate. A friend of mine's daughter graduated top in nursing. And you see all the students graduate and you're like, what are you going to do here? So I think that I want to build the city. I'm all about the development, the growth, and the prosperity of Medicine Hat. I've only been here for 11 years, but came here in 2004, fell in love with it, and moved here 11 years ago, and it's home.
What was it about Medicine Hat that kept you here?
The friendliness, the beauty of the community, like how close, tight knit everybody is. I lived in Calgary for 12 years. You never saw that. Lived in Edmonton for a year and a half. It's a bigger version of Medicine Hat in mine, where people invite you in their home and you hang out and you make your friends. And I just love the city, and it's 15 minutes almost anywhere when you're driving.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now your campaign's been a little different. Like you say, you haven't been putting out the signs. Were you at any of the debates that were held? Were you able to make them?
No, I wasn't. I got called 24 hours before they were actually announcing everything. At that time, I was actually up in Calgary for a 5-day manager conference for the organization I work for, and it was until Thursday afternoon when I got back, so I didn't have enough time. So it threw me for a little bit of a loop. But I'm going to be hitting some of them this week coming up. Tomorrow's Halos, and then there's the one at St. Joseph's, and then the Viner Center.
Yeah. What kind of reception have you been getting at the places that you have been?
A lot of people like the fact that I look at everything very analytical with numbers and like on the business level. I'm a big fan of investing money, not spending it, and a lot of people like that aspect of it. The people just like the way I talk. For 5 years, I worked for a large manufacturer. It was the biggest manufacturer of remote starters in North America, and I learned how to do a little bit of different business style on that. And I've seen every city in Western Canada from Victoria all the way to the Ontario border.
Medicine Hat is, I guess, just waiting to be discovered?
I believe so. The one thing with driving 95,000 kilometers a year, Medicine Hat, in my opinion, is in the central hub of Western Canada. I've often wondered why there's not a lot more industry or shipping and stuff like that. Considering, when I drove it, I drive 12 hours to Vancouver, 10 hours to to Winnipeg and stuff like that. And, you're driving to Edmonton and that. And I think that Medicine Hat's missing its potential to grow. And that's where I often wondered that. And that started, 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's your game plan for Medicine Hat if you're elected?
The one thing that I really would like to see is the mechanics of how it works. Once that happens, then you can build a game plan that's proper for bringing in proper investment. And then, using the resources that we have. I'm a big fan of investing money, not spending it. When you ask about the whole politics thing, I've been following it for a long time because I got a lot of stocks and shares, and politics tend to relate to how your money's going up and down.
Yeah, the investors want certainty.
Absolutely.
That's what you hear. And if they don't like what they see, they take the money out of the market.
Absolutely. And I think there's a potential here. And with what's happened over the last 4 years, I think it might be holding back a little bit because you see a little bit of internal dysfunction.
Somebody looking at it from the outside and maybe not knowing all of the nuances of what's happened over the last 4 years, they would just look at it and go, do I want to put money into that community or not?
Absolutely.
So how do we change that perception?
I think the one thing is, obviously this is brand new to me. The one thing that a lot of people ask is like, I'm willing to put the 44 to 60 hours a week in. The organization I work for, they're well aware that I will go severely part-time. I think that you have to go through and see what we have, what we can offer, take what we have that's very successful and see what we can spend money on now compared to wasting a lot of money that I've seen and a lot of people have said.
Yeah. Any particular projects that come to mind?
Can Villa was a big one. The government gave $750,000 for it, went way over budget, and it didn't take off the way it was supposed to. And I feel that's a waste of money. The big talk is Division Avenue, and listening to your podcast over the weekend, they said it's because nobody knew where to park. And I live up in Crescent Heights, and I was driving down 12th Street, and they painted lines for parking. They painted lines for the bicycles, and you just drive down it.
Yeah. So you say you're not a spender, you're a saver.
Betcha.
Investment, though, coming into Medicine Hat, would you offer incentives to people to set up a business here?
I think when it comes to doing the business level of it, there's nothing wrong with somebody's looking at it and asking the question, what would it take today for you to start working with us? There's nothing wrong with that question because, if they're holding back or say like another community, like say Lethbridge or Calgary is looking at it and they're willing to give something, if we're going to grow the community and people are going to start making better paying jobs, because when people make more money, they spend more money and people are just happier. Money doesn't buy happiness, but it buys the freedom to do the things you love.
That's the thing. You get into competition as a city when somebody wants to invest and they're, looking to get in as low as they can. So, Community A will offer me this, Community B will offer me this, and Community C, what do you say? So, you can't just rule out incentives flat.
Absolutely.
You have to be able to say willing to work with the people that are on your doorstep.
And I think that's where the competitive market comes into play. We talked about it, and you go into Lethbridge, and every time I go back, that's my hometown, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing. As a person that owns his own business, as like a little side gig that I got, it's tough to do business in Medicine Hat. I talked to another person today where they bought a building from the city. They had the plans, and now they've readjusted the plans on them where they're saying you can't do this unless you do this, 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 and this. I don't like that term, cutting the red tape. I think the city of Medicine Hat should just be easier to work with from the inside out.
One of the ideas that I've heard coming up through the forums is that they need one point of contact. I think they call it a concierge, fancy term for somebody who will take a would-be developer through all of the steps at City Hall instead of just into this department, into that department, into that department, and then you get over here and you find out, well, this department here says you should have learned this over here.
Absolutely, and that's what the young lady was telling me today. You have one department you talk to, and then all of a sudden the other department saying, well, no, that's not right, and then another department says you have to do this. And I think there should be a more even flow from beginning to end. Just make it easier for people.
Sounds like a communications issue.
Absolutely.
The left hand and the right hand need to know what they're doing.
No, it is. And the one thing I noticed too is, everybody's talking about economic development and growth. And as a small business owner myself, it was really tough to get a residential business going, and the councilman that helped me at the time, he was great about it. And we had a really good hour conversation where most successful businesses start off as a concept and an idea out of somebody's basement, their garage. And one of the companies I worked for when I was working for the manufacturer, his idea started off selling running boards out of his apartment that went into a trailer that is now 6 city blocks in Saskatoon. They also have a distribution facility now in Kamloops, and they have one in Montreal. And it was just an idea. I'm going to sell running boards, and it just grew and grew and grew.
From a small acorn grows a mighty tree.
Absolutely. And I think that's where if we get together inside of the city of Medicine Hat to build a plan and make it easier, people will come here. And, the idea to grow something out of your house, to go into brick and mortar, to hire staff, to just sit back and maintain, is the ultimate goal of any business owner.
Would you be a salesperson for the city of Medicine Hat as a councillor?
Absolutely. I think there's a lot that we have to offer, and we're being missed out. Once you get into it and you understand what we have and what we can offer, people, if it's sold right, they'll buy it, and I think we have a lot of potential here that's just being missed.
One of the things that this next council is going to have to deal with is the utilities, whether or not we want to give some of the responsibility to a municipally controlled corporation. I think there was like 6 different options that I think are still out there. I'm not sure they've closed the door on any of them. If you were sitting around the council table, where would you put your vote?
I think with the proper people in play within City Hall, we could do it. We've been doing it for how many years? I think the thing is, one thing I've noticed that a lot of people say is that's the way it's always been done. Well, unfortunately, that's the way it's always been done, isn't working today. So how can we adapt and change? I think if we take a little bit of it on and we can't do it, you get consultants, and consultants will always help because they get paid for that. And I think we should keep as much of the money as we can within the city. And that's also a feature too, that when you're attracting business, we own everything. We take care of it. And a lot of people will respect that.
Mm-hmm. Property taxes, 5.7% increase. People are saying, can't afford it. I just don't have the money. So as you're sitting around the council table making the decisions on the next budget, what are you going to tell them?
Oh, that's a tough one, because when I saw the increases, I'm a renter. My landlord and me have an agreement that when taxes go up, my rent's going to go up. And I understand the struggle that a lot of people have. I'm a single father and I work full time. I got my side thing and I take care of my son. And I think that if the people saw what their taxes were going for, they wouldn't really question it. I live up in Crescent Heights and I kind of see like all the dead grass and around. I think people deserve to wake up and drive through the community and see it's being properly maintained. With taxes, that's a tough one, because once you go up, you really can't go back, because then you're going to make a whole bunch of cuts. And the other side of it too is with the taxes is maybe just going through the budget of the city, looking at top priorities, and then seeing what isn't necessarily wanted today and take care of the needs of the public.
Okay. And that brings us to the Samus Solar Project, which the city has put out a nice little amount of money on it so far. Would you be in favor of them continuing to develop that?
I think with the Samus Solar Project, it needs a little more investigation, and I think they should start off small, because it would be a lot more feasible to tell the city of Medicine Hat we lost $10 million compared to losing $70 million if it doesn't work out. I still remember when they got rid of the original solar project that was where the old water slides were, and now we want to try it again. And
that was a different technology, though.
And I understand, like, when you're attracting new business, that they want to have that infrastructure. For the fact is, then they can say we're working with this for greener. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if we should go at such a big scale right off the get, because if it fails, it's going to look really, really bad. And I think we should start off in like sections of it.
Okay. What about people services like the Southside Recreation Center that is being, I guess, public hearings now? They're trying to get public feedback. Again, you look at it, is it a need or is it a want? Right now,
Talking to a lot of parents and being a parent on myself, and I never really paid attention to it because my son's not in swimming, but a lot of parents on the south side say, if you want to go to Big Marble, the last swimming class is 4:30. It's not feasible for parents to work full time. I'd like to see what we already have being expanded on, and then maybe a little more upkeep. It's a want right now. Do we need it? I think if we grow the community and we actually build a better city, then that will come into play later on. Right now, I think we just need to adjust what we have to make it more feasible for everybody else.
And what we have is also the Crestwood Rec Center with a pool there.
Absolutely. And I think it's it'd be more feasible to hire a couple more lifeguards that would teach swimming classes until 7 or 8 o'clock at night.
Okay. All right. Looking at leadership, would you be a leader among the other 7 members of City Council in conjunction with the mayor?
I think with the leadership role is you need to have a team that comes together. You're going to have opinion A and opinion B. And the one thing I've noticed in politics is there's always fighting and stuff like that, compared to taking both of them and coming to a mutual agreement that benefits everybody. And that's where, I think proper leadership is when you get in and you build a program together and you lead certain pieces within what's happening. it'll grow.
So you'd be a consensus builder? Is that how you would
Absolutely
work with it? Okay, all right. One of the things, and you did bring it up here with the Division Avenue traffic calming. It was anything but traffic calming. The people got more upset about that than they did about any project. Are you a detail-oriented person who would have looked at all of the things and said, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense?
Absolutely. I'm very analytical where somebody will ask me a question and it might take 2 or 3 days, 2 or 3 days for me to get back to them because I look at the facts. Is it one of those things, like I said, listening to me and a friend were talking about it, and I decided the one day to come down Gershaw and come back empty nest and where Swirls was. And there's that bump out. And I got just a regular F-150, and I had to come all the way into oncoming traffic, and I still clipped the back wheel on my truck, and you see tire marks all over it.
I'm one of them.
Oh, and like you said, I live up in Crescent Heights, and I see the lines on 12th where you have the parking lane that everybody says nobody knew where to park, and then you see the bicycle lanes, and I could have saved a lot of money just hiring some painters.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's just sometimes it's what you don't know, you don't know.
Absolutely.
And, it's details, and being analytical and asking questions is all part of the job.
And it is. And the one concern I had is I sat through the one council meeting where they were talking before they went to that big forum, and they said, well, if it doesn't work, we'll just redo it again. And that's not right, because you think you'd go to plan with something that you're not going to have to take down and redo until you get it right, especially when you're playing with money that isn't yours.
Yeah. I had a good friend of mine who always used to say, how come there's not enough time to do it right, but there's always time to do it twice?
It's funny you say that. My grandfather, when he was around, he told me, you're better off to sit there and spend double the time doing it right the first time. That way you're not going back, wasting money, wasting your time, and wasting the product because you want to cut a quarter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Medicine Exhibition Stampede has been coming to City Council several times this year, asking for help in expanding and renovating their facility. What's your view on that?
That's one of those ones where I'm still looking at it. I think the Medicine Hat Stampede Board could come to the City of Medicine Hat with a little more with what the plan is, where you go. Because I sat in one of the meetings and it could be 10, it could be 20, it could be $40 million. We don't know where we're at. And the one thing I've heard people say is, even listening to the council meetings, is what's the government going to kick in? And the government's saying, well, what's the city going to kick in?
After you, Alphonse.
Absolutely. And, the way I look at it, on a business level of it, I have no problem with them taking a zero interest loan from the city, because there's going to be people that are never going to use that facility that are paying the taxes on it. And there's going to be people that use it all the time. At the same time, though, is the Stampede, when they're doing the rodeos and they're bringing people into town, they're staying at hotels. They're going to restaurants, they're spending money within the community. So I'm at a 50-50 on that one without a little more rock solid concrete plan from them. That makes sense?
Getting back to your analytics.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you want to show me the money.
Absolutely. You go to the bank and you want to borrow a loan, they want to see all your details before they start giving you the money. And
yeah. One of the big problems that we see almost on a daily basis are the people who are lost in our downtown. They referred to as being the homeless. Some say it's a drug problem. Some say it's an affordability issue. What about Dana Christensen?
I think it's a combination of everything. I have an empathetic heart for it because you never know how they got there. And I've said that to people where, if you never know how they got onto drugs. You never hear a child saying, I'm going to grow up, I'm going to be a homeless, going to be this, or you never have an adult saying, oh, in a year or two, I'm going to be homeless. There's certain circumstances that could happen. I've heard of a couple stories of a couple people that were addicted, they got off it, and then all of a sudden they went and had a surgery, and they gave them opioids for pain medication, and they just fell off the banner. And how do you handle it? I am a firm believer, no matter where they put a mustard seed or anything for their help, it is going to upset somebody. If something like that does happen in a neighborhood, I think what would calm down the neighborhood would be is if there was a little more police presence.
Mm-hmm.
Because then the neighborhood would feel a little more safer knowing the police are there 24 hours, even if it's one police officer at a time. And I don't know what the problem is, but there has to be a way to correct it. I've talked to a lot of people, and I said it's a shame that, if you walking down the street and you've got a beer in your hand, you're going to get charged with open alcohol. Or if you're walking home because you had too many, you're going to get charged with being intoxicated in a public place. And this is what they're seeing. And as a tax-paying citizen, they don't see the fairness in that.
Mm-hmm. This council, one of the things that 4 years ago they were talking about transparency. We need to do more business in open council. From your point of view, did you see any transparency in the last 4 years?
I saw a little bit. I think they could have been more open with how they were doing stuff and how they got to the plan compared to saying, we did this, this, and this, we're going to do it. And I think transparency when you're playing with other people's money is very important, because then they'll understand how you got to that idea, why you're doing that idea. Mm-hmm. You're selling an idea and a concept to the people that are paying for it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. One of the difficulties that this council has been working with the one employee that they have and the city manager. Your thoughts on how that all went?
That one, I don't think anybody really knows, because you can never find out what she was making and how everything happened. The thing with the mayor, I saw it. Something was crossed. She was handled the way it was handled. It went up to Calgary and the judge said it wasn't right. When it comes to having a lot of conversations, I think the city should have just paid the lawyer fee compared to now. If something happens, she gets another lawyer. We're going to be stuck with that if it goes a certain way. And I think it could have been handled a lot better within. Okay. And that's where, when you have proper leaders and everybody works as a team, you have conversations to work through it. You don't just make bold moves like that.
Okay. I've said you've probably heard me on other podcasts that talk about that vote being one of the most valuable pieces of currency today, because I only have 8 votes and there's 39 candidates. So why should I spend one on you?
The main thing that I tell a lot of people is I'm your your everyday average medicine hatter. I'm a dad. I work hard. I put the same time in the community that everybody else does, and I see the same struggles everybody has. My background is business. When it comes to money and that, I analyze money, and I'm very open with people on what we're doing. There's the one thing that I said to a lot of people is, this isn't going to be a part-time job for me. I'm going to dedicate myself to Medicine Hat. Medicine Hat gave me life. I got a son, I got a career, and it gave so much to me, and it's my turn to give back, and I'm going to work hard for the community.
It's easier to run than it is to sit on the sidelines and be a armchair quarterback.
Absolutely. I don't want to be a bench warmer. I want to be the guy,
starting quarterback.
Absolutely.
Okay. Dana Christensen, candidate for Medicine Hat City Council on October 20th. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. I appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you.